the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Here's an email that came in. This is from Deedee, and she says, my spouse insists on our kids having smartphones. What if you and your spouse disagree on smartphones for kids? My husband bought all of our kids' smartphones when they start 7th grade. I don't know how many all the kids is, but it sounds like you've got, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Who knows? First of all, I will go out there and say that's a terrible, terrible, terrible idea to get your kids smartphones. Now, I realize, Deedee, that you agree with me. But if I were talking to your husband, respectfully, of course, I'd say that's a terrible idea, man. You're setting your kids up for a lot of problems. It may not seem that way now, but invariably, you hand a kid a smartphone, there will be problems. But if he, for whatever reason, doesn't see it that way, I understand your dilemma. You're married. He's the head of the family. He's your head, as St. Paul describes in the epistle to the Ephesians. So he has an authority, but he has the authority here. But there is, to my mind, there's the caveat. What if, let's say, now this is apples and oranges. It's not oranges and oranges or apples and apples, but giving your child a cell phone is legal. It probably shouldn't be. I'm talking about a smartphone. I wouldn't bat an eyelid if anybody were to bring forth legislation that would make it illegal to give children iPhones or just smartphones in general below a certain age. I'd be happy. I would sign the petition to get that on the ballot. Personally, we don't let kids under, the age of 18 buy cigarettes? They can't buy cigarettes. They can't buy alcohol under the age of 21. Most, if not all, states by now. There's certain I know, seriously, Maddie, seriously. There's certain things in life that are legal, but they're not legal for children because they're bad for children. They're bad in general. Like cigarettes, I would argue, are bad in general. But okay, whatever. 30-year-old wants to smoke cigarettes. All right. The details of, what can often happen if you smoke cigarettes, like lung cancer and whatnot. But we restrict these things from children for a good reason, because they're not capable emotionally, maturity-wise, etc., often physically. They're not capable of handling this thing that is in itself dangerous or can be dangerous. I would be completely fine with making such a law in place for smartphones for kids. I doubt that'll ever happen. If it ever does happen, come to me with a clipboard. I will sign the petition. Happy to do so. In the meantime, however, your husband this is where I'm saying there's kind of an apples and oranges comparison, but I think there is still a comparison here. Your husband is the authority in the marriage, not that you don't have authority too, but in terms of headship, he has the ultimate authority. And the thing to remember is that authority is not absolute and unrestricted. The husband can't, for example, require that his wife do something illegal or immoral. He doesn't have that kind of authority. He can't insist on giving the kids whiskey. Well, we're going to give the kids whiskey. Well, they're too young. It's illegal. You can't do it. Well, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm the head of the family. Now, I don't know if your husband is invoking that or not, but just in theory here, I propose in a way, how you do this, I don't exactly know, but I would encourage you to look for ways to lovingly, respectfully, patiently resist this in your home and keep reminding your husband this is a bad idea, not because the guy on the radio says so. Jump on ChatGPT, jump on Grok, jump on whatever your AI of choice is, and you can easily assemble the data of just anecdotal examples of kids who get into all kinds of really terrible trouble, including suicide and similar things because of smartphones. And maybe he is unaware of that. It could well be that he just has this Pollyanna-ish idea that smartphones and kids go together just fine because nothing ever happened to me. Now, I don't know if he ever had a smartphone when he was a kid. You see what I'm saying? In other words, I wouldn't just say passively, all right, well, dad says it's okay, so I'm not going to say anything. I think that because of this gray area, which is not an infringement upon his authority as the head of the household, but rather it's your duty as a wife, as the equal partner in the marriage, to say, there's something really wrong with this, and it affects my children, our children. They're not just your children. And so I have a stake in them, and I disagree. And rather than say it once and let it go, I would return to the topic as often as necessary, so that you don't have to down the road say, well, I told you so, honey. I told you that he would get hooked on porn, or I told you that so-and-so would start doing thus and so, things that are associated with the way that cell phones can be harmful to kids. Pornography to me is like the absolute number one gigantic, most likely to happen problem when it comes to smartphones. And the reason they're called smartphones is because they have instant access to the internet, not to mention the plethora of various apps that they can download clandestinely and so on. And kids are smart. You know they're smart. You know that all they have to do is look at a YouTube video to figure out how to get around whatever flimsy barriers you might try to put in place. That kind of thing. So I encourage you to, in your loving, supporting role as wife, nonetheless assert the truth on this issue. And it may be in time, perhaps, that your husband will come around and see things differently. I hope so. For the sake of your children, I really hope so. But at least register that so that everybody is clear that mom is absolutely opposed to this. And I know this is cold comfort. I'll leave it at this. I know this is cold comfort, but if it should happen, and I pray that it doesn't, but if it should happen that one or more of your children winds up getting into problems, maybe serious problems as a result of the smartphone, you always can play that "I told you so" card. I told you that giving our kids smartphones in the 7th grade is a terrible idea. I told you that, and you wouldn't listen, and you wouldn't listen. And look now. Boy, do I hope that never happens. I really do hope and pray that. Feel free to play this segment for your husband. I'm not here to try to weaken the bonds of marital unity or anything like that, but it is a problem. Not everybody sees it. And if your husband would be interested to give me a call, I'd be more than happy to at least give him directly my own thoughts on the issue and see if that might help. But in the meantime, I'll say a little prayer that things work out smoothly for you. Thank you.
You can join me by listening to The Patrick Madrid Show on the Relevant Radio app, live each weekday at 8 to 11 a.m. And thanks for listening.